Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sophia Porter, and I'm the Executive Director for Black Orlando Tech. Today, we're going to be going over our upcoming cloud computing course, along with just one-on-one if you're just curious about cloud computing as a whole. And before we just get started, I do want to just start off with some intros. Just if you're new to Black Orlando Tech, not maybe you have heard about us, but you're not really sure what we do. I just want to go over that really quickly with you guys. So we are, of course, we're located in Orlando, Florida. And what we are doing here, we're just more so wanting to empower the community into technology. So the ways that we currently do that is we help serve different tech startup founders in the area, technology professionals, professionals seeking to transition into technology, and then also we help with college students and graduates as well. We have been around since 2016, founded by Joshua Walker and Mike Felix, who are both local to the Orlando community. And most importantly, we are a nonprofit organization. We felt that this mission that we have here in regards to trying to empower people again into technology, into either entering the field or becoming entrepreneurs themselves, are just wanting to just understand more about what the emerging technologies are as the world is progressing forward. We really want to make sure that we are just educating the community, providing that awareness, different activities, networks, and resources that everyone can build careers with, start their entrepreneurship journeys and ventures. In regards to our programming, which is really our secret sauce, we have a few things that are coming up. But again, we provide different event workshops throughout each of the months. So this is a version of it that is virtual, but we also do things that are in person, which are geared towards the third Wednesday of each month. In regards to programming that we also have coming up, we are really big on upskilling and startup entrepreneurship. So we do have our cloud computing upskilling course that's going to be starting February 3rd. We have a Python upskilling course that's going to be starting as well on February 24th. We have our startup self-led incubator that is going to be also starting February 24th. And then our startup launchpad accelerator program will be starting back up in March. So all of these applications are currently open and are listed on our website if you are interested. But we will also be sending out emails to those who have joined us today. And then, of course, with our cloud computing one-on-one today, we will be providing a QR code or a link that goes directly to the application for you to fill out. In regards to additional bot events that we have coming up, we do have a Python for beginners that's coming up as well in February. And we have our 411 on startup pitch decks and how to pitch better. That'll be virtual at the end of February as well. So you're more than welcome to take a picture of this QR code, or you can find us easily on our website, or Eventbrite would be the perfect way to sign up for any of these events coming up. And then I also want to just take a moment to thank our sponsors and partners. Without their generous support and their help, we wouldn't be able to put on these workshops and virtual workshops today, and along with our programming. So again, we're just very grateful to have them at our back end to really just help us make sure that we are able to provide what we need for you guys in the community. So now I'm going to turn this over to our founder, Joshua Walker, who's going to be leading today's conversations. So please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm going to be scouring and watching out for them to make sure that he does see them towards the end. And again, if you have questions later on, even after today's workshop, you can definitely email us at info@blackorlandotech.org or find us anywhere on social media, and we can definitely get back to you. All right, I'm going to bring on Josh now.
Hey, folks. Thanks, Sophia. So yeah, we can get started. Thank you guys for whoever is able to attend this session. And thank you to all of those that attended the first cohort last year that we brought back for cloud computing. I've made a few updates here, and we're gonna be looking to revamp just this program overall, because there's a lot of cool things happening within cloud computing, and it's a field that's really in demand still. So I look forward to, kind of giving you a crash course here, and then talking about how you can kind of get involved before the cohort, as far as like some resources, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A based on the chat, based on any burning questions you have rather. So with that, we can get started. So just for any stranger danger for anybody, if you don't know me, I'm Joshua Tech Dev Walker. I use that moniker because otherwise it's really hard to find me on the internet, because as cool as I think I am, I'm not the coolest Josh or the most important Josh. So this is the easiest way to find me. I'm a senior cloud solutions architect. I've been working in the field of tech for, gosh, I realized today, since like 2013. It's been a long journey, but I've been in the cloud computing space for around 8 years now, working on some of the biggest projects globally, mainly in life sciences and healthcare, but then in a lot of other sectors as well. I'm also the author of Venti Fried Chicken, which is really just a comedic autobiography about how I went from just a kid with no trajectory, went to the military, came out, lost everything, got everything back in some, all through really the vehicle that is technology. And just so you, because everyone sees where you are now, right? And they kind of make assumptions on how you got to where you're at. But I am personally self-taught, from with cloud computing and just programming in general. When I first got into technology in general, I started as like a general programmer. I started doing like coding emails of all things. And that was a good entry point because a lot of archaic technology, meaning like how you use style sheets and stuff for email, was a good introduction because of basically learning some foundational stuff from like older technology, but then bridging it with the new. Continue with my growth, building websites, and got in the front end and back end. It was more like on the software dev side. But then I was starting to get more into like data and the concept of data and how data could be used. And I started going down the path of, being a data scientist. And I did some classes at like John Hopkins, and, did a lot of Udemy type stuff, and was really trying to go down the path of data science. And then one of the founders I knew locally at the time, that was at Starter Studios, which is an accelerator that's still here and does a lot of great work. I essentially, like, he bumped into him and he was saying, "Have you ran any of your data workloads or any of your data science workloads in the cloud?" And I essentially said, "Oh, what's AWS?" And one of my mentors, that he mentioned AWS like a year before that, but it was like a very brief session, and at the time it was very like niche. But that being brought up again felt like kind of a sign to look into it again. Went home that night, did a bunch of like late night studying, and was like, "Hey, I think this is it. I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing." And data science right now is a lot more human than it used to be. If I'm being honest, it used to be more like kind of like pinky up PhD, type of culture, but has gotten a lot more democratized with a lot of folks changing from other industries and other avenues to get into data science. But at the time, it was like, it'd be cool to hang with the tattooed IT people, and that's where they were. And it was in cloud computing, and it was like such a new and exciting space, and it continues to be new and exciting to this day. And then, far as bot, we started bot, I think around 8 years ago, around the same time I was joining cloud, actually. And it has been an amazing ride. We're just here to really support the community and help folks go from zero to a new career in tech. And the reason this was a big thing that we wanted to focus on was because of the impacts that it had on the founders. So all of us came from all types of different backgrounds, but we know how tech and the enablement of tech has drastically changed our lives. Like me myself, I got into tech. My wife got into tech. Now my daughter is graduating soon, in a UX program. And then all the people around me that have been inspired over the years and have changed. You drastically see their life improvement, economically, through the field of tech. Due, of course, it being lucrative, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But really, the autonomy and really just using as much of your brain as possible. The reality is there's not a lot of people in the world that are interested in this stuff. So if you have like really an acumen or a desire or a curiosity for technology, this is, there's room for you. And not everybody's a programmer. And I always joke, we need normal people too. So hopefully, I can convince you to join the Cloud Gang. If you, this is, a community I built on TikTok, which I'll talk about in a second. But I'm also an AWS community builder. So I started with AWS. I was at first more like cloud agnostic, but have since really super niched down in AWS because that's just like my thing. And this is a great designation because I've been doing this stuff for bot for a long time and teaching online and things of that nature, speaking, etc. And it's been great to be able to connect with community builders all over the world that are doing the same thing in their respective areas and respective countries. So, yeah, with that, hopefully you know a little bit more about myself and kind of where my heart is as far as teaching. And then far as outside of bot, if you're looking to, destroy your attention span, I guess TikTok is on its way back. I had that emoji to symbolize that it's, kind of on the fritz there, but it hasn't popped up in the app store for me yet. But I'm on YouTube, not so much Instagram as much anymore, but still going to be looking to do a lot more content online again this year. So to jump into the big part of it, it's always like, what's in it for me, and money talks. So I updated these numbers actually yesterday because it was more in like the 120 range the last time I did this talk. So it's jumped up, but of course, so has inflation and the cost of everything essentially. But for an average salary, this is a lot more than most fields. And then this search that I did yesterday as well was based on entry level remote jobs, which I should have put. And there's like apparently 4,000 entry level cloud computing jobs on LinkedIn right now. So, Bot has a very, like almost every person in Bot could probably go after a job in cloud computing. So, if you're looking about the money, you're a big money person, which we all are, then this average salary is pretty awesome. And an average is saying that some people make less and a lot of people make more, but I can, without putting myself in danger of someone trying to rob me, this is a drop in the bucket for sure. So um so why do I love the career even outside of money and material things? There's a bunch of reasons, and I'm someone that is a proud like ADHD person that could never do anything I didn't really like doing. So because I dabble here and there with our startups and the startup scene, a lot of people are like, hey, why aren't you going on your own and stuff, is just because like I'm more of an entrepreneur, meaning like I'm a person that works at a company, love the company I work for, love what I do, love the clients I serve. But the cloud itself as a genre has been like my favorite thing I've done in tech. And mind you, I've tried a little bit of everything. Like I said, I've done front end, back end. My mentor is in UX, so I did like is into UX and product design. So I did a formal like class at Valencia for UX. So I dabbled in a lot of stuff to figure out what I really liked. And cloud was kind of that thing that spoke to me and continues to speak to me, and think it'll be the thing, I retire doing. And I guess maybe the next thing, the next frontier after that would be quantum computing, but it kind of falls in the same lane. Um, for really the reasons I love cloud, to make a long story short, is very remote enabled. I know a lot of folks are going back to hybrid and stuff, which is fine. But depending on where you work and who you serve, a lot of jobs are still remote for cloud computing, and it makes sense, right? Your whole job is online essentially. So, as long as you're proactive and you know what you're doing, especially when you get to those more senior roles, there's usually a lot of flexibility on your location. Um, on the demand side, everyone needs it, right? So, I dabbled in front end. I did a lot of websites, a lot of like product design type stuff, and I really was never a big fan of like I like aesthetic things. If you know me, I'm like a big person that's into fashion and stuff like that. But I myself am more of like a back end thinker. I like back end because it's the thing that powers the internet. So It was always hard to explain what I did, so I usually just tell people I build the stuff that powers the internet, which is a good kind of oversimplification. And then I talked about money, but very lucrative. There's a lot of great enterprise companies, but there's a lot of mid-sized companies too that hire a lot of great talent, and people, really enjoy their life overall as cloud computing folks. So to jump into what cloud computing is, so what it does is it's really just you're using you have you're using basically the greatest and latest technology. You're leasing it essentially from, the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Googles of the world, and it's pay as you go pricing. And the best thing about it is with pay as you go, if you're not using it, you could turn it off. You could upgrade, you could switch. And then if you want to buy in bulk or buy long term, then you get a price break there. But essentially, you get to use the latest and greatest tech to power whatever your app or startup is. And it's the best thing since sliced bread. And just to maybe date myself, which I guess I'm getting older now, that when startups before, like it was hard to compete with an enterprise company because you didn't have the infrastructure they had to be able to compete. And of course, there's certain things that you're still not going to have that enterprise company has, like the infrastructure of like people, mass relationships, etc. But at least when I got into like the startup scene, which is how I got into cloud computing, was helping out startups in the Orlando scene, was their biggest advantage when they were going up for VC funding was being able to say like, "Hey, I can scale this business. Like, if you pour $5 to $10 million into this thing right now, I can scale with the demand of user acquisition." So it has leveled the playing field in a lot of areas where you see what seems like overnight for some of these unicorn companies that pop up just because they now have the technology to be able to compete on all scale. And it's really a system of working smarter, not harder, in a lot of ways, where they're able to outflank maybe legacy systems that's been around for decades because of this great technology. And then I work mainly in enterprise, and even big, like on the opposite side, it's been amazing seeing how it's revolutionized like life sciences and healthcare, where we're able to get drugs and all these things to market faster to literally save people's lives because we have the compute power to back our solutions. So if you hear passion, is because I really believe in this stuff, and I think cloud computing is one of those areas where I can see a direct line to how I've impacted people thus far. So I talked about a few of these, but the benefits of cloud are really the three big pillars are scalability. So you're be able to seamlessly adapt to change. So if you're one of the stories I like to use all the time is, and this is another one predating myself because I don't even know if she does like a show anymore, but um, Oprah used to bring people on for like her book club all the time, and essentially they would sit on her couch, and by the time they left the show, people were crashing the servers because they were trying to buy whatever they were on Oprah's couch for. And people would take it as like a compliment, but I always thought it was really dumb because when your servers are down, then you're not making money. So scalability is important. So if Oprah brings her couch back and you sit on it and you're using AWS, then you'll be in good shape. From a security standpoint, this was a big thing that we defended a lot in the beginning, not so much anymore, was basically being able to protect your data. So you can do a lot with a data center. Of course, you can physically see the servers, but with like social engineering and a bunch of other stuff, there's a lot of ways where a lot of people get compromised with having that machine. And then going back to scalability, if the bad thing about the cost of servers, and you kind of ran into two scenarios before. It was either you were trying to use just the right amount of server capacity, but you had two scenarios where either you use too much, or even worse, a lot of times is you use too little. So you bought too much infrastructure, and now you have to justify that cost that you're losing because no one is using that capacity. You have to find some business reason to use more, which is a bad spot to be in. But jumping back to security, How I like to describe it is like basically your attack dogs can have attack dogs as far as security. Like you have, your firewalls. You have so much granular control over who and what can access your systems, and they really double down on security more and more each year, especially with the boost of AI and all of these different attacks that we're seeing. Far as like the ransoms that are happening using AI, so, the cloud computing community is on top of it, and the vendors are doing a great job of keeping up with these threats. And then, last but not least, for benefits is disaster recovery. So, similar to the Oprah example, which maybe they had backup servers, but one of the worst things that would happen before is if you had your own servers in your own location. Hopefully, you had something, in another data center that you can cut over to, but maybe you didn't. And in case of a disaster, which is why we call it disaster recovery, like something like a force majeure type thing, then you lose all that data, you lose all of that IP on that hardware. So with the cloud, you can make it so you can fail over, to a copy of your infrastructure, move all your data over very seamlessly, move it to different parts of the world, serve content based on where someone lives. So it's amazing as far as the benefits. But those are some of the there's an endless amount of benefits, but those are three that a lot of business owners like. So I'm not a big history buff in the general sense, but I'm a big history buff on the cloud sense. So I wanted to give really the flowers you know to Amazon, who was like really uh, the first to come out with like really the cloud computing service. I think S3 was the first service, if I'm not mistaken, in 2006. And I think I like showing this slide too because a lot of people they think maybe cloud is newer than it is, but maybe it isn't at the scale that it is now as far as the amount of services and the breadth of services that they have now and the amount of control and firepower and global global infrastructure that they have now, but they've been around for a while. And then we have, Azure and Google Cloud that follow suit and have some great services as well. I've worked in all three, even as someone that's a primarily an Amazon guy. But and then I think this is important to say when we're looking at the job market too, Azure has done a lot of great catching up over the last few years. But from like a job perspective, usually AWS is a lot usually has more market share, and a big part of it is having a head start. So just good for general knowledge. So to go through some of the cloud service models, I think this is important because it's something that's not as apparent as it maybe should be sometimes. So we have what we call software as a service. So you're basically accessing software applications directly on AWS. You're basically saying, I want to just use the thing. And if I'm being honest, most things are going to SaaS because what you're giving up in control, you're gaining back on not having to do the carrying and feeding of like making sure the thing is up, making sure it's patched, as far as like security vulnerabilities, making sure that it can scale. You're basically putting all of the onus on the platform itself of like I just want to make sure this thing is available all the time and secure. And of course, there's certain things you have to do, but it's the most hands off approach for you to be able to stand up your application and use the services for what you need it for. You have platform as a service, which is kind of somewhere in the middle. A good example is like Amazon Lambda, which I'll talk about later in this presentation, is which it uses the serverless concept. Is it's an abstraction of sorts, but there's still a lot of configuration on your end. With Lambda, you're basically saying I want my code to run without worrying about provisioning servers. So that's where that kind of like SaaS part comes in, where you still have to configure what code is running and why and all that stuff and all the logic. But as far as like the back end service itself, as far as what runs that code, you don't have to worry about that. And then infrastructure as a service, which still has a place in a lot in some use cases, is I want complete control. So I'm gonna get a EC2 server. I'm gonna install software on there, custom software, and I want to worry about the sizing, the location, all that stuff. I want basically the most amount of control I can get from using this infrastructure. So, oh, sorry, this. Yep. And then I just wanted to talk about AWS global infrastructure a little bit. So we have, and it's probably grown a lot since this. Now that I think about it, I should have looked this up, but you'll see that there's basically a lot of infrastructure all over the world. So pretty much any major region in the world has an AWS data center nearby, and that even I'm talking about AWS specifically, the other vendors maybe not as wide scale, but have a similar structure where they're trying to serve the countries and regions all over the world that you need this infrastructure, which pretty much everyone in the world does. So I did want to talk about some of the foundational services. Um, First of all, I wanted to talk about Amazon EC2. So this is like one of the easiest things to understand when you're going from what we call on-prem, which means like the when you had infrastructure on your like campus or at your office, which a lot of enterprise businesses still do, and they do a hybrid approach where they're using the infrastructure that they already paid for with the cloud. I think that's a misconception as well that if you're were working in your data center for years and years, and maybe there's compliance reasons why you need a data center as well. Those two things can play together. But EC2 is essentially you're able to rent like a server from Amazon, and you're able to pick like the size, what's the hard disk, basically all the requirements you need based on what type of workload you want to run for your application or whatever workload or process that you're running. Amazon S3 is the simple storage service, which is why three S's. And essentially, the best way to think about it is flat files. So we're not talking about, and there's like some gray area there where you can build in logic for like React apps and stuff in S3, but that's beyond the scope of this. But for S3, is mainly used for storing flat files like data as far as like CSVs, like like files, which I don't know if I ever say that word correctly. And then like images, things that aren't like a database is a good way to think of it. Something that isn't complex and has logic. It's like a flat asset. And then for virtual private cloud, it's really your own little slice of the internet. So it's basically you're saying this is my network. I decide what's in it, who can get into it, what traverses over it, what are the tunnels into it, that type of thing for virtual private cloud. You have Route 53, which is your registrar, like you in it helps for DNS, so you can buy your domain name there. And I think because of maybe the Amazon name, another thing I dispel a lot of times is that like maybe your domain is going to cost more or nothing. No, it's still just around the same price. So if you want to buy your domain and manage it within AWS, if you're like want to use like their service for WordPress, or you want to build your own static site which you can host for free in S3, then you can use Route 53 to do so. And then IAM, or identity and access management, is literally basically your control center on who are your users, what groups do they belong to, what are their permissions based on their job. And a concept that you'll hear a lot is least privilege access, meaning I only give you enough permissions to do your given job, and that's the best way to go about it. Going into security and compliance, which kind of fits somewhat in the IAM, we have Amazon Guard Duty, which is threat detection. So this is great for really checking on unauthorized access to your resources. So a good example is like maybe you do business in a part of the world, but you definitely don't do business in another part of the world, and you see like all this traffic from like Australia or something, and you're like, that's probably some hacker on top of a Komodo dragon or something. So the guard duty will alert you like, all right, now I want to blacklist all of Australia, and that's nothing against Australia. I'm just using that as an example. For AWS config, that's one of my favorite things, and my students know this, just because it basically you can hook in basically like compliance into config. So a good use case for config is saying, when someone does this, do that, and I want to enforce this policy. So config is a great tool for that. We have WAF, which is it's a web application firewall, but it's like that on steroids. So it really helps if you're someone's trying to do a big DDoS attack and a bunch of other crazy stuff to like overwhelm your infrastructure or find a tunnel in. It has a ton of control, similar to guard duty, usually used together for different reasons. And then you have AWS KMS, which is your key management service. So that's where you can use your keys to securely access your different resources, and then you can even bring your own keys if you so choose. And then getting into some of the data tools. So RDS, the best way to think of RDS is like your basically spruced up version of SQL database, and it has basically every flavor of SQL. But the great thing is you can use like read replicas where essentially if you have like an e-commerce store, everyone's slowing down everything because they're doing a bunch of queries based on trying to fetch certain products. You can do like a read replica where it's saying like, oh, all of these type of transactions, it goes to the read replica instead of hitting my main database, so that the people on my backend can do their work or et cetera, whatever workloads they need to run for that database. You have DynamoDB, which is a document database, which is more like it's a different flavor of database. It has a big learning curve, but it has a lot of pros to it as well, where you're using key value instead of relational, which is beyond this, but worth looking into for sure. And then a lot of the new age databases are serverless as well. I mean, so is RDS, where you don't have to you pick like certain things, but for the managed databases, you basically don't have to worry about anything but the flavor of everything. For QuickSight, a good way to think of it is similar like in like the Tableau or Power BI family. It's a great and I think underrated tool for data visualization. So if you wanted to use a tool that was native to AWS, where you wanted to keep everything in house into one tool, QuickSight is for you. And then you have Amazon Athena, which is great for interactive querying. And what I like about it, and something I've seen in the use case in other clients, is using it so that you can essentially use SQL on top of your S3 bucket. So uh, when you're talking about things like data lakes, which is, I keep saying beyond this course, but data lakes are essentially, instead of the traditional database where I have to have everything almost right, I tie different databases together to basically answer questions or query certain information. A data lake is saying like, hey, we're going to throw all of this data into one place and we're going to use what we need. We're going to refine what we need, but it's a like one central repository for data. It makes it so you democratize, data within your company, and it has profound effects, especially in life sciences and healthcare, from my past experience with clients. And then, of course, you can't do anything now without talking about AI or ML. So, which I've been talking about this for a long time, but I'm glad everyone's just as excited as I am now. So, SageMaker is really a fully managed service for like data science workloads. You can build, train, and deploy models. So, if you've ever used like a Jupyter notebook within Python to do like data sciencey things, then you can do a managed version of that in SageMaker and a slew of other things. For Amazon Q, a good way to think about it is almost like essentially like Gen AI, like for infrastructure in a lot of ways. You can also build it custom for your shop. So Bot hasn't put it to production yet, but we did do a POC where we used Amazon Q to basically make our own version of Gen AI. And the great thing about it, they make it really easy for you to tie in your own distributed data sources. So, like, I pulled in data from like our HR system and Google Drive and a bunch of other stuff, and it was really cool because if like Safia wants to know like some obscure question about one of our contractors, I don't want her to have to like log into a tool and look for seven things. It'd be better for her to query one place, one magic box for most questions. So I should push for that to get to production as soon as possible. But one of the ones I'm super excited about is Amazon Bedrock. So Amazon Q is more out of the box, more streamlined, a little bit less learning curve. But Amazon Bedrock is what you're seeing a lot of pushing the bar in a lot of ways for what you're seeing in enterprise and the market. So this is using the latest and greatest LLMs, as far as like the algorithms that you're seeing that's boosting generative AI and machine learning. Amazon Bedrock is responsible for coalescing a lot of that. And then last but not least, Amazon Recognition is another underrated service, but makes it easy to add image and video analysis to your apps. So if you have like those, things where you want to, a good example, and I'm just pulling this out of thin air, not a true client example, but something I've heard about in like the news and stuff. Like a good example would be if you were trying to scan for like a certain type of cancer in X-rays. Amazon Recognition would be something where you could feed it a whole bunch of images, which it would take a physician like a long time to look one by one, and they'd be fatigued because humans don't do things well at scale. But Recognition could just say, hey, out of these, 1,500 photos, 700 of these are this type of cancer based on the profile that the machine learning is working off of. So just a hopefully helpful example. So it kind of gets lost more in the Gen AI talk, and it feels like the buzzword of yesteryear now for serverless, but I'm still excited about it, especially because a lot of the services now in AWS are serverless, and API Gateway and Lambda were just one of the two most important still to this day that are serverless. So how do I try to explain this concept a lot of times is if a server is basically like a car, you need gas to run a car, which is like your compute power. And essentially, you either if you're running that car, you got to go from point A to point B. Serverless, and especially in the Lambda sense, would be if you're saying if we had, and I use Rick and Morty because of the portal. If I just wanted to go to point A and point B, it would be like that instead of worrying about like the cost of gas. Hopefully that makes sense. So it's saying I want to run this Python script, but I don't want to worry about if what type of servers in the background, like AWS, you worry about that for me. So we've done all types of stuff in the past with Lambda that, and there's been whole businesses that have run free, and they're getting funding from VCs and all that stuff off of Lambda because of how generous AWS is with the Lambda calls. Even with and a concept I like to talk about too for AWS is the economies of scale. So the more, and this is in cloud in general, but definitely for AWS as like the leader, um, the more that we use something, the cheaper it gets for everyone else to use it. Essentially, is how it works. So this is a good example where um, for AWS for Lambda, you get up to 1 million calls per month for free. So I think it was a Cloud Guru, which that's one of the resources I'll talk about. That's amazing. But I think in the beginning of it, and this is a story that they've said publicly, they were basically running for free. Like they were getting subscriptions from me and whoever else was learning cloud at that time. But like their infrastructure was essentially free, because they were running off of Lambda. So it has a learning curve, but the learning curve comes with a lot of rewards. So I did want to talk about like careers, and I know we're winding down the time, so I'll go through these a little bit quicker. So I talked about the median, but it depends based on what type of company you go to, seniority, etc. But I wanted to talk about the archetypes a little bit. So solutions architect is where I'm at now, where and usually don't start as a solutions architect, right? So it's something you build up to. So I started as like a DevOps engineer, then I was a senior DevOps engineer, then I was like the delivery leading DevOps engineers, and now I'm like a senior solutions architect. But then I was a solutions architect before that. So it's like a progression where you survive enough wars, you know where the bodies are buried, and now you're a solutions architect because you're the big picture thinker is the best way to think of it. So people ask what I do from day to day. It's me strategizing from soup to nuts on like how is this thing gonna basically come to life. How do I build the most robust system for the least amount of money? Is probably the best way to describe it for solution architecture. Whereas the DevOps engineer, who is the cool person that's basically patching you in, but maybe not on the battlefield, talking to the client and stuff. But which I've been that person as well. Is more usually focused on like the scripting and automation and basically being the person that helps the solution architect bring things to life. And then we all hear about cloud security, but a very lucrative niche, I would say, for cloud security or within security is cloud security. And there everyone's looking for cloud security folks. So this is a super valid career field. I myself don't consider myself a cloud security SME, but I have to dabble within it. Well, one, security is all of our problem. So, like, you should never feel like, well, that's the security people's job. That's how you end up on CNN. So, just move with caution. Assume you try to make the least hackable thing, and make sure you see something, say something. But cloud security is worth its weight in gold, especially now with all of the different tools. And we love working with our cloud security folks, and sometimes they keep us in check when we're trying to move too fast without considering everything. Um, so resources to get started before the cohort, because I don't like to gatekeep. For free code camp on YouTube is completely free, and they if you just type in free code camp cloud computing, so many free courses will come up. And I would particularly pay attention to you would do free code camp AWS exam prep or something like that, and you'll see like up until the associate, I think all of the associate exams they have prep courses. So if you wanted to supplement material, even during my cohorts, these are things that I point to because people learn in different styles, and maybe Josh saying it isn't enough for you to learn it. I know I'm a person that likes to learn. I like when I'm on the treadmill at the gym, I'll learn from like one thing from like four or five different people, just because maybe that person has a different perspective. And I mentioned the Cloud Guru; they're a paid service, but they're worth their weight in gold. And I think they merged with Pluralsight, which is amazing. So it combines really the best, in my opinion, paid cloud platform with one of the best like software learning places. So I would definitely check out a Cloud Guru. It's one of the places I got my start. Got to meet one of the leads from there when I was in Vegas, not this year, but the year before that. And it's a great company, and they've trained a lot of great people, and they give you a lot of game on how to take exams, which I pass down to my students as well. So if we're talking about foundational AWS certificates or certifications, there's really two paths in the beginning that I like to recommend. If you're super duper brand new to cloud, I always push to the cloud practitioner. But I put an asterisk by it because when I started, which is showing how old I am once again, there was no cloud practitioner. So there was only the associate level exams. So I had the solutions architect associate and I had the developer associate. Now that I have like a pretty intense day job, I need to get recertified and all that stuff. But which I'm working on some new certs, but not those ones particularly. But you can go straight to if you have like the hunger, the desire, you can go straight to the associate certs. And I can say, and I'm always transparent, for the practitioner cert, it's a good intro to cloud, but it's not enough to get you hired. Like no one's gonna look at a cloud practitioner cert and say, like I want, that's not gonna be enough. But I think it's a good like stepping stone, especially if you're coming from another industry. Like I have a friend that that works at like a college. He was able to pass the cloud practitioner. I have a lot of I have a lot of people that have trained that have gone from all types of walk of life and passed the cloud practitioner. And it gives you, it's like going to the gym, right? You start you're out of breath, you're like sweating a lot, you're like, man, how did this happen? But then, once you get to a milestone where you get the cloud practitioner, then you get that hunger to be able to do the associate level exams, which are harder, a lot harder than the foundational cert. Far as like doing the solution architect associate or DevOps associate, like which one and why. Usually, I push people, if in general, to solutions architect because it gives like a wide array of all of the services. So it gives you a good gambit of everything for you to check out. Um, but if you're more developer focused, and like I came from a developer background before I was getting into cloud, so I did the developer first, and it was a good transition for me. So if you've done any type of coding whatsoever, that might be a good first stop for you. Um, and yeah, and then I wanted to talk about some new exciting certs. And I right now am studying for the first one, the cloud or actually I think I put the wrong cert here. So there's apologies for there's a new cert for AI that they just introduced that I'm studying for. I'll drop it in the chat, the link. And there's a new other cert that they have now for machine learning that so I'm gonna do the first new one, and then I'm gonna look to take the next one after that. So if anyone's interested in like my learnings from going after these two certs, let me know because I just want to get back into the cert game just for learning's sake. And both of these both of the new certs are hyper relevant to what I do right now and what I want to do in the future. So talking about the cloud cohort, this if you've been in my cohort, this is subject to change because I like to. I'm not some. I want to teach something that will actually, hopefully, help you and get you into a position where you can, better yourself and actually learn. So this is a layout of how we usually break it down within 8 weeks for the cohort, which at this time is completely free. And essentially, what I want to do is make it so you're you're building real world things that people would actually use in the market so that when your portfolio is put together, someone isn't like, that's you don't look like everyone else, and it's actually something I know it would be used on like a team that you would work on for me. So um, if you're interested in that, you can sign up here today, and I'll leave this up. And then I think Safia, let me see. Yeah, we have like 10 minutes left. We can jump into QA. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys. And I'm working on some good guest stars happening as instructors this
This
time
time
around.
around,
So
so
hopefully see you there.
Okay. So I have one part two question, but it's really one from I think
Okay.
Adele, if I'm saying her name right. Okay. So do you ever have to have tech experience? Is it worth it?
Okay, I see it. Yep. Yeah, I think it's totally worth it because um it's a branding thing, right? So like I came from like a traditional software background, but that doesn't mean that I know cloud really well. So it was a good way for me to show to myself and employers that I have what it takes to work and be on their team. So I would say it's I always say the two things, and the latter is even more important, is the certification, but then those real world examples of what you built to go along with it. So I have a bunch of stuff on my YouTube, and I'm going to be updating a lot of those videos. But one thing I stress is portfolio, like build real world projects, and then build projects that even if it's on a small scale, you're using free tier, what have you, it's pretty easy through cloud to be able to explain like, hey, through the solution architecture, if I was going to bring this to production, these are the changes I would make, or this is how I would scale it if it went to production. So, yeah, hopefully that answers.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because his part two to that was he's currently studying AWS Cloud Practitioner. So you just want to make sure that was that like a good
Mhm.
stand to start, essentially.
Yeah, if especially if you're just starting, I would start with that one because it like I said, it'll build momentum. You'll crush that one, you'll feel pretty good, and then I would move to the next one. Yeah.
Okay. If anyone has any more questions, definitely go ahead and just drop them in the comments. They seem to be all coming through. I'm checking all the feeds physically, make sure I'm not missing anyone. Let's see. Is there anything else maybe, Josh, you can enlighten people in regards to for this cohort? Anything that could be different?
Yeah.
Expectations, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I would say we're trying to put more structure around it, but if you join the cohort, like you get out of it what you put into it. So we had a lot of great students this past cohort, and you know, I'm pretty flexible on like what do you want to build and why. So one thing we do we survey for the cohort when it first starts is like where's everyone at. There's going to be people that are completely new to cloud, but then there's going to be people that maybe want to do more advanced stuff. So I try to do a balance of making sure I cater to both of those audiences. But I would say like if you join the cohort, just like put as much as you can into it, and because there's through my network, through bots network, if you're killing it and you have what it takes, we're going to be people that will be able to recommend you to places and stuff and make those introductions. So
Okay. And another question is from Adele again. In regards to the GovTech, do you know if there's any experience of
mm.
working in the cloud in that realm?
Yeah, that's an area that's grown a lot. So AWS has what they call GovCloud, and because of all of the rules that come with, and I'm prior military, and so is Sophia, so we understand all the rules that come with Uncle Sam's realm. But essentially, it was like a scaled down amount of services for GovCloud, but it's not like that anymore. They have done such a good job of foolproofing more services to cater to that sector because they know it keeps our defense well, it keeps everything national security up to date. But if you have a clearance, there's a huge sector for if you're on the entrepreneur side and you want to be like a contractor for the government doing cloud computing work. There's a lot for that. But then from an employment side, if you have a clearance, there's a lot of opportunities as well. Like where I'm at, we have like a whole sector for that, and it's such an amazing space and a lot of cool projects. And I'm looking at there's a second two part as well as how to navigate a plan for better job while holding one. I so I'll have to maybe I can give I think I have my email or my LinkedIn in the next slide. Let me actually do that now. If you want to hit me up, I have like a lot of friends in that space on the gov sector side, so I could probably let what sites you could use to apply for government stuff. I'm more on the what we call the commercial side, so I'm just a little bit out of touch on that one.
And just a correction on the email be .org, not .com for you guys. People do
Oh
send
yes,
email.
good
And I
catch.
just want to point out, just depending on where you are located, if you're here in Orlando or just anywhere in the nation, I know for us in Orlando, University of Central Florida, they have a lot of DoD stuff going on over there on the contractor side or civilian side. And they're always looking for opportunities. And like how Josh said, like there's startups, there's a lot of programs there that are they're looking for people to help on the cloud side. So definitely
100%.
check your universities around your area. And then we have another question in regards to when does the program start? So we are starting this program the week of February 3rd. So it'll start off with orientation, and then the week following will go into the class itself. So we'll be launching on our website along with on email exactly what that whole oh my god, schedule will look like. There you go. From top to bottom, that's matched to the
Yeah.
presentation. I don't see any
Okay.
other
Awesome.
questions coming in. Um, but thank you everyone for joining us today. I will let Josh go back to the slide with the sign up or the application, and I just want to go over it pretty quickly. The
Yep.
application it might seem a bit lengthy, but the reason why is a lot of this is sponsored, by Orange County here in Florida. we have JP Morgan as well as a sponsor for this program. So just for us to make sure these programs are also free for you to apply and participate in, we do have to ask certain questions to go along with our relationships there. But please fill it out. But if you have any questions, again, just contact us at our info at blackolonialtech.org and we'll get back to you. And yep, we'll be sending out pretty shortly just in regards to like what the actual schedule will be looking like on a weekly basis.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I don't know if Josh, you want to plug in your TikTok if you still have TikTok on your phone. Definitely go find him because he does
Oh
does
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of
I'll
talking
go back.
videos for you to check out. There you go.
Yeah, so just venti fried chicken on YouTube, TikTok, yeah, pretty much everything. Yeah, so hopefully I'll see you guys on those other platforms as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys. We're going to cut the stream off. Again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Thanks, everyone.